Hello everyone, welcome back to the Emanscape. I am Mel, your friendly neighborhood rambling writer. So, today on this episode, so weirdly corny. So, today on this episode, back to my usual stuff, and by that I mean things I should probably stay on topic about. Writing. So this is it's a little filthy now. So this is my copy of Ted Chiang's The Story of Your Life, or originally published as Stories of Your Life and Others. It's since been renamed Arrival because there was that movie with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner from a few years ago that was so critically acclaimed and loved that they decided to rebrand the collection. Stories of Your Life is the, wait for it, it's the title story of the collection, actually. Not coincidentally, not, yeah, it's not the first story in the collection. Story of Your Life is like the fourth story in the collection, but I'm not even here to talk about Story of Your Life. Most people are familiar with that one because they've seen Arrival, and it's a great movie, great concept, linguistics, blah, blah, blah. So this is, by the way, one of my favorite short story collections over the past, I would say, Anthropocene, the age of man, humans. So the story that I actually wanted to talk about is actually the last story in the collection, the absolute last story in the collection, called Liking What You See, a documentary. Yay, right? So, Liking What You See, a documentary, because Ted Chiang is a thinker. He doesn't say it when you see his interviews, he doesn't actually say it, but he's a thinker. And in his notes on Liking What You See, a documentary, he says, quote, psychologists once conducted an experiment where they repeatedly left a fake college application in an airport, supposedly forgotten by a traveler. The answers on the application were always the same, but each time they included a different photo of the fictitious applicant. It turned out people were more likely to mail in the application if the applicant was attractive. So this is what inspired Liking What You See, a documentary. I expect physical beauty will be around for as long as we have bodies and eyes, but if Caliagnosia, which is the procedure in the story, ever becomes available, I, for one, will give it a try. Caliagnosia is the procedure that is the focus of Liking What You See, a documentary. And it is written as a documentary. Beauty is the promise of happiness. It is written as a documentary. It centers on a college campus where the school is considering implementing a technology procedure called calliagnosia. So the documentarians, if you must, are going around interviewing different people, some who are pro calliagnosia, some who are anti-calliagnosia, and some students who've had calliagnosia, and others who have never had it. Some want it, some are okay, some say no, and that's how it works, blah, blah, blah. So, Caliagnosia is from two words, both Greek, calliope, which is the Greek for beauty, and agnosia, meaning non-knowledge. So agnosia, without knowledge. So Caliagnosia is literally translated to without knowledge of beauty. Beautiful, right? And the technology is a procedure that people get that allows them to basically not register someone's features, good or bad. So typically we respond to beauty, everyone responds to beauty, but with this procedure, you will not respond to beauty at all. You will not respond to ugliness or deformities at all. And the purpose of this, the pro of this, the argument goes, is that it allows you to judge people for who they really are on the inside. The con, the argument is that beauty is idiosyncratic and people should not need a technology, or rather in this case, a procedure to help them see people for their true beauty. But of course, that's very, very hopeful and not realistic. People do judge you based on what you look like. But another con is that it won't allow people to appreciate the idiosyncratic eccentricities and uniqueness of people. So that scar on your face won't be memorable. Maybe you don't want it to be memorable, but it is a part of who you are. And one of the other fear is that people will not be able to look at art and appreciate it because they have no feeling either way. Interesting idea. So Caliagnosia is sort of like a real life Instagram filter. Or no, that's not accurate. So for example, let me just read this part first. Caliagnosia is possible because of the existence of certain neural pathways in the brain. This is how the technology works, or the procedure. All animals have criteria for evaluating the reproductive potential of prospective mates, and they've evolved neural circuitry to recognize those criteria. Human social interaction is centered around our faces, so our history is most finely attuned to how a person's reproductive potential is manifested in his or her face. You experience the operation of that circuitry as the feeling that a person is beautiful or ugly or somewhere in between. By blocking the neural pathways dedicated to evaluating those features, we can induce calliagnosia. But it turns out that when people of different cultures are asked to rank photos of faces for attractiveness, some very clear patterns emerge across the board, even among very young infants. They show the same preference for certain faces. This lets us identify the traits that are common in everyone's idea of beauty. We know what they are: clear skin, bright plumage in birds, blah, blah, blah. Acne may not be serious, but it looks like a serious disease, and that's why we find it disagreeable. Another trait is symmetry, blah, blah, blah. Basically, Caliagnosia is a lack of response to these traits, nothing more. Caliagnostics are not blind to fashion or cultural standards of beauty. If black lipstick is all the rage, Caliagnosia won't make you forget it. Although you might not notice the difference between pretty faces and plain faces wearing that lipstick. And if everyone around you sneers at people with broad noses, you'll pick up on that. So calliagnosia by itself can't eliminate appearance-based discrimination. What it does, in a sense, is even up the odds. It takes away the innate predisposition, the tendency for such discrimination to arise in the first place. That way, if you want to teach people to ignore appearances, you won't be facing an uphill battle. Ideally, you'd start with an environment where everyone's adopted calliagnosia and then socialize them to not value appearances. So this is why the university wants to adapt this technology. There are some schools that are known as the Caliagnosia school where this has been the case. So there is one section that interviews parents as well as founders of the school who explain why they enrolled their kids in a Caliagnosia school. Everyone's teens were asking for cosmetic surgery so they could look like fashion models. The parents are doing their best, but you can't isolate your kids from the world. They live in an image-obsessed culture. I just want to find that section where Saybrook has a higher than normal number of students with facial abnormalities like bone cancers, burns, congenital conditions. Their parents move here to keep them from being ostracized by other kids, and it works. I remember when I first visited, I saw a class of 12-year-olds voting for class president, and they elected this girl who had burn scars on one side of her face. She was wonderfully at ease with herself. She was popular among kids who probably would have ostracized her in any other school. And I thought, this is the kind of environment I want my daughter to grow up in. So I won't give you the summary of how this story ends, whether the school accepts or defeats the motion to implement Caliagnosia. What I do want to discuss, however, is this concept of beauty blindness or blindness to beauty. We know that, again, prosopagnosia exists, where you cannot remember a person's face, or face blindness as it's generally called. So this would be a sort of extension of that. It's not just faces you can't remember, it's what someone looks like. At least you don't have a response to abnormalities or traits that you otherwise would be not inclined to care about. So the pro of this is supposed to be that it makes you less shallow. When you can't judge and dismiss a person based on what they look like, you have to treat them according to their character. So this means that the mean-spirited pretty girl likely won't be more advantageous than the nice, lesser attractive girl. And there's one character in the story who's like, I'm naturally pretty and I want to keep my advantages. This isn't fair to me. It's not fair at all. Yeah, I don't know. I appreciate the concept of this, that people are judged by their character. We hold this as a kind of ideal in our society, judge by the content of one's character, not by what they look like. And that's hard. The people who say, well, dismissing someone because they are ugly or have abnormalities is nature's way of, making sure that we pass on the genes that are the most advantageous. So when someone has severe abnormalities and their features show it, we know this person is likely diseased, even if this person is not. No one wants acne. You don't want to be with someone who will pass on acne-prone genes. So if you make someone blind to beauty and that person dates someone who has features that they otherwise wouldn't care for, you're essentially challenging nature here. And there are two characters, both of whom attended a school for calliagnosics, and one removed hers and was worried. She wanted to rekindle her relationship with her ex, but he was still wearing his. She eventually convinced him to remove it, and it didn't go very well for either of them. I don't want to give it away, but, she was left wondering did she really care about him to begin with? Like, everyone is surprised that she would date him because he's below average, but she couldn't see it because of Caliagnosia. And he seems confused when he removed his and saw what she looked like. Maybe confused that she was with him. But this is just one of the great high concept ideas in Ted Chiang's Arrival, now called Arrival. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but maybe it can be in the eye of everyone. Maybe if you remove the obstacles that keep people from judging each other for their character, it will go over better for everyone. Anyway, this is just Ted Chiang's Liking What You See, a documentary. Hey, Mel here. So if you've just watched this video and you're wondering what is this about, this is just a discussion piece that I've put together that I hope will foster in some discussions about interest in high concepts in literature that I do like. Ted Chiang, I'm starting with him because he's brilliant. And next will be another short story from his collection. You can call this a informal book club discussion review, blah blah blah. So if you've read this short story and you have some thoughts on this notion of calliagnosia or beauty blindness in real life, let me know what your thoughts are. Is this something you would get? Is this something you would support? Do you think it's a good idea? Why not? Let me know and drop me your thoughts. And yeah, subscribe, folks.